a time,
there lived a very, very old man.
in fact, he had lived for all of 46 years.
His name was Herman.
And he was very old.
And the slightest movement was extremely difficult for
Except
him.
when he was angry.
And he was almost always angry. Why, he could be angry at his son, at his pomegranate tree.
But of all old Herman's enemies, the one that angered him the most,
and the one that aged him the most was, well, you tell me.
the knight.
He had always hated the night, and even when he was busy hating other things, he could hate night at the same time.
Once he decided to do something about it. Old Herman was going to do battle directly with the
He
knight.
plotted and strategized all day long, and grew so anxious for the conflict to begin that when night finally arrived,
He was almost happy, but he caught
he
himself.
pulled himself up strong into a fighter's
He
stance.
put up his dukes,
Old Herman was going to fist fight with Night.
but night was too big for him. Everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and in the end, the fight only left old Herman very, very tired.
His next move was to build a very large closet in which he'd lock up the
He
Night.
gathered many boards
And sawed
and planed,
and hammered.
and then when it was finished, he pushed and shoved and poked at night until somehow he got all of it in the great closet. But when old Herman closed the door, night met his brother, darkness, and was very happy.
Oh, it would never do to have such a great enemy happy. So old Herman began stuffing Night under his mattress.
No sooner had he tucked under the last edge than he began jumping up and down on top of his bed as hard as he could.
But Night is so skinny it slipped out without any trouble at all.
That was it. Old Herman would resort to his most desperate strategy. He would shoot the knight.
Carefully, he loaded his rifle and prepared for 6 shots. North, west, east, and south, up and down. He would fire rapidly so Night couldn't get out of range.
But when old Herman pulled the trigger, the shots rang out in all directions and gave Night a voice. This frightened him.
He trembled.
He was so frightened, he immediately set out to frighten Night and make it fear him. He painted a most ugly
terrifying and fearsome
mask,
which,
he put on. No sooner had he covered his face than something strange
for
occurred.
just a second,
Old Herman stopped fearing Night.
he knew, you see, that the mask made him
Disappear.
or at least hard for Night to find.
He drew a deep breath and slowly, one by one, all of his muscles relaxed. And then, for a split second, old Herman even stopped hating Night.
Oh, this could never be.
He ripped off the mask and began kicking and tearing at Night in the most savage dance ever. On and on he lashed until finally his body could take no more. And he collapsed onto his bed into a very deep, all-day sleep.
Just
As dawn arrived, coaxing the day's light and warmth into position and showing everybody in the world,
everybody, that is.
except old Herman.
That Night is just the mask of day.